Operators of the Unmanned Systems Forces, SBS, destroyed Russian tanks, a crossing point, and a fuel depot. At one of the key frontline sectors, operators of the 412th Nemesis Regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, SBS, carried out effective strikes against the enemy, destroying several tanks and howitzers. As a result, the intensity of Russian attacks decreased, while the tactical situation for the Defense Forces units, on the contrary, improved. In addition, the operators destroyed a crossing point and a fuel and lubricants depot, depriving the Russian forces of the ability to quickly move reserves and supply them with fuel. The systematic work of SBS fighters restricts enemy maneuvers and reduces their offensive capabilities. The 412th Nemesis Regiment has once again confirmed its status as one of the most effective strike forces in this sector, the outlet reads. Since the beginning of September, the Unmanned Systems Forces have struck 13,611 targets in total, including 3,693 enemy personnel from the aggressor country's army. Ukrainian defenders struck a logistics hub of the Russian Marine Corps based in the Kursk region. As a result of the precise attack, the occupiers were left without an ammunition depot, a storage base for materiel, and concealed sites for weapons and military equipment. It was also reported that units of Ukraine's Special Operations Forces attacked the Volgograd oil refinery in Russia, halting its operations. The plant supplies fuel to the Russian army, including for combat operations and logistics. Following the accurate strike, large fires were recorded at the refinery, leading to its subsequent shutdown. Ukrainian forces in Sumy successfully exploit methodical maneuver warfare, pressing forward settlement by settlement to turn Russian positions into manageable targets. Rather than trading lives in costly frontal fights, Ukrainian commanders isolate enemy detachments, sever their supply lines, and then tighten the noose until those positions become untenable. Relentless air and drone strikes have exposed Russian units, leaving many undersupplied and unrotated for several weeks. By bypassing strong points and collapsing salients piece by piece, Ukraine has been able to push north of Kondrativka and even probe back into Kursk while turning both sides of the border into a flexible battlefield. Another push north from Andriivka led to Olexivka being cut off on three sides, and the Russians there facing an increasingly dangerous situation. The encirclement is the result of coordinated Ukrainian maneuver, constant fire control, and persistent pressure, with Ukrainian units now executing flanking attacks to close lateral routes. At the same time, Ukrainian drone units pummel Russian concentrations and roads in the area with hundreds of strikes. This denies the Russians any possibility of moving freely and degrades all reinforcement efforts. With only a single usable road into Olexivka, bringing supplies, evacuating casualties, or rotating troops has become effectively impossible, as anyone attempting the approach is detected and struck long before it reaches the outer edge of the settlement. Russian soldiers on the ground now openly warn that Olexivka is heading for the same fate as Kondrativka unless the Russian command abandons the position rather than bury more troops there, as they report that the semi-encirclement is rapidly turning into a slaughter. Instead, Russian officers have reacted with frantic redeployments in a bid to break the encirclement, as the exhausted 382nd Separate Infantry Battalion of the 810th Russian Naval Brigade was pushed into action at Kondrativka. Supposed to mount a counterattack and relieve the pocket at Olexivka, under normal strength, this formation would field roughly 1,000 soldiers, but under current conditions, it only musters close to 500. Notably, a large number of these are reportedly newly mobilized, poorly trained, and badly equipped soldiers, thrown in just to bring the battalion up to a higher combat readiness on paper. Russian sources confirm all combat-effective reserves have been redeployed to Pokrovsk, leaving only second-tier and understrength units for the task of preventing a full-on collapse. One Russian officer even reported they receive only older people, marginals, and simply not combat-ready recruits in poor physical condition. He added that to prevent desertion or the shooting of officers, they are constantly watched by military police and are only issued weapons right before combat missions, with ammunition limited to 2 magazines each. The attempted rushed countermeasure to attack Kondrativka to relieve pressure at Olexivka was predictable and fated to fail. Replacements arrived under fire, becoming immediate targets for Ukrainian drone and artillery assets, with exhausted Russian units unable to form coherent assault echelons. Rather than rescuing the encircled formations, these hurried moves only dramatically increased Russian casualty counts. The attempt to plug gaps with understrength battalions highlights an operational dilemma, with Russia's concept of trading bodies for ground running straight into Ukraine's deliberate tactics of isolation, starvation, and attrition.
Быстрее!